بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وعباد الرحمن الذين يمشون على الأرض هونا.
الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وأزواجه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد، فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الذين يبلغون رسالات الله ويخشونه ولا يخشون أحدا إلا الله وكفى بالله حسيب. Today, inshallah, we'll be starting with the name of Al-Haseeb, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Al-Haseeb has two different meanings depending on which root word it has been driven from. If it is driven from the word Hisab, then it means Al-Haseeb is the reckoner, the one who would take the judgment, who would hold people accountable for whatever they do. So it's from Hisab in this case. The other meaning of Al-Haseeb could be that it would be driven from the word Hasb. Hasb in Arabic language means to be enough. Hasbi Allahu wa ni'mal wakil. Allah is enough for me. Hasbi Allah. So in this case, Al-Haseeb would mean the one who is enough for people, which means to fulfill their needs and to protect them. Who is enough for human beings, and with him we don't need anyone else. And of course we can see that both of these meanings are applicable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is Al-Haseeb as a reckoner, and He is Al-Haseeb as the one who is enough for us. The word Haseeb is used in Quran al-Kareem 4 times, and all 4 times in Quran it has been used for the meaning of reckoner. Although this doesn't mean the other meaning is not correct, but in Quran all 4 times it has been used for this meaning. Taking this meaning, Al-Haseeb would mean Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is going to judge all human beings for all of their deeds. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah An-Nisa, at the beginning of Surah An-Nisa, tells us, وَكَفَى بِاللَّهِ حَسِيبًا. Allah is sufficient to take the accountability from human beings. So Allah is enough for judging people, as it means that Allah will judge all of us for all of our doings. At the same time, it means that for whatever Allah is judged for, we don't really need to be judges for each other. We don't need to judge other people, of course, except where Sharia would require us to hold a person accountable for these things as a responsibility. Besides this, those people are bad, those people are like this, Allah is enough for them. And Allah is going to judge them. Trying to find out people's faults, trying to spy on people, and prove that they are bad. Allah is enough to judge people. We don't need to judge people, and we don't need to run out after people's faults. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَكَفَى بِاللَّهِ حَسِيبًا. He is enough to take that judgment and to hold people accountable for their doings. In another ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ كَانَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ حَسِيبًا. This is also in Surah An-Nisa, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keeps account of everything. So there is nothing that is out of His record, and everything is being recorded over there, and He will judge people for all of their deeds, and according to their actions and according to their deeds. What do we benefit by knowing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Haseeb. Just try to imagine a house where no one is accountable for any of his or her deeds. Either you'll use the bedroom for sleeping, or use it for cooking, or use it for eating, or you use it as a bathroom. You can use the same room for anything. No one is going to question you about it. Try to think of a business, of a factory, of a company where there are a lot of people working, but there is no accountability for any person for doing anything. Do whatever you want. You can break the machine, you can throw the computer out, you can use it. Keep it on the desk or keep it on the floor. Think of a country where the country claims a freedom and a type of freedom where no one is accountable for anything. Do whatever you want. You can kill people. You can rob people. You can commit crimes. No one is going to question you about it. As long as you are a citizen of the country, you are fine. You can do whatever you want. No one in the world would approve this type of country, that type of community, that type of business, or this type of a house or a family. And every person that will look at it from that angle, that this is what they have, this is the system they have, no one would feel safe being in that place, in that house, or in that country. So the safety, peace of mind, and making sure that everything will run properly, everything is in order, would come only when people are accountable, when people can be questioned for what they have been doing, and anything wrong they do, they have to pay for it. Without it, no system can work in the world. Now, let's turn that question, the same question, let's turn it towards religions. If there is a religion that says as long as you are a follower of this religion, then you are doing fine, then you are okay. Just believe in one or two things, couple of things that you have to believe in, then there is no accountability for you. You can do whatever you want. There is no questioning. Just feel free to do anything you want because you believed in this. Just disbelief will take you to paradise. What type of religion that would be? Now, we see the beauty of this deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where repeatedly Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is reminding us, Inna Allah sari'ul hisab. Allah will judge people very fast. His judgment is very quick. He's going to be judging all people from the time of Adam alayhi salatu wasalam till the last person in the world. All the people will be held accountable for all of their deeds on the day of Qiyamah. There is a day that is called Yawmul Hisab. In different words, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as He sent us to this world, He did not just leave us here without any rulings, without any responsibilities. We all have responsibilities in this world. This world could be all mess if human beings would forget the responsibilities they have been assigned by Rabbul Alameen subhanahu wa ta'ala. This universe is created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And as He created the universe, He created the rules and the laws for us, for human beings, to reside in this world, how to do things. As He created us, He sent some rules regarding our lives also. How should we be using our lives, our time, and all of our abilities that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have blessed us with. Look at the beautiful hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam when he says, كُلُّكُمْ رَاعٍ وَكُلُّكُمْ مَسْئُولٌ عَنْ رَعِيَّتِهِ. Every person is responsible, is in charge of something. وَكُلُّكُمْ مَسْئُولٌ عَنْ رَعِيَّتِهِ. And each and every human being will be questioned about those responsibilities. We see the sense of responsibility in this deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Such a responsibility that a person can never neglect, and no one in this world, regardless of who that person is, no one in this world who believes in this deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can claim that everyone else is responsible about me and my situation, but I'm not responsible about anything else. I'm not responsible about anything. I can do whatever I want. Others are responsible regarding me. My parents have to feed me. They have to provide me. They have to fulfill my needs. My teachers have to educate me. So there are people who are responsible in charge of me, but I'm not responsible of anything. There is no one who can claim that. Of course, even from the worldly point of view, it would be wrong, but from the Sharia point of view also. This deen of Allah is such a beautiful deen that teaches us how to live in this world in the right way. Not only just ibadah, not only just salah and we are done. This deen teaches us all the details regarding our life, and just look at the sense of responsibility that this deen is giving us. كُلُّكُمْ رَاعٍ. Each and every one of you is responsible. وَكُلُّكُمْ مَسْئُولٌ عَنْ رَعِيَّتِهِ. Not only that you have been assigned responsibilities, you will be questioned. مَسْئُولٌ عَنْ رَعِيَّتِهِ. You will be questioned about these responsibilities. If this sense of responsibility would develop in the human beings, we would have a very peaceful society, where each and every person would be looking at responsibilities more than looking at his or her rights. Whereas in today's day, and especially we may say with all the claims that we have, that we are advanced and we are educated and we are civilized, in today's civilized societies, we see that everyone is just claiming his rights and no one is willing to look at responsibilities. When you see people are walking with banners, rights of laborers, rights of teachers, now students are coming out, rights of students. Then the children are taking their parents to the court, rights of children. And parents are hiring other lawyers, rights of parents, rights of husbands and rights of wives. This whole war that is going on is just because everyone is looking at rights and not responsibilities. Whereas if we look at the Sharia of the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the teaching is totally the opposite. Always look at your responsibilities first and then you look at your rights. Which means, I have a complaint about you. What should I do? Should I hold grudge against you now? Start talking to people, try to find someone that I can complain to, try to get a lawyer now who would sue you, or let me see what wrong did I do to you. Am I fulfilling my responsibility? Or at the end, my response would be, when I'm questioned in the court, my response would be, I didn't do it because he or she didn't do it. If this is our response at the end, looking at the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, at the orders and the laws of the Sharia of Islam, we can see that this answer will not be acceptable by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of judgment. That I cursed at this person because he punched me. Did you curse him more or less than the punch? What was worse of the two? Did that punch open all the doors to the evils for you, that you can do whatever you want? You can curse at him, you can break his car, you can burn his home. How far can you go with it? So the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is teaching us, look at your responsibilities. In many of the cases, when we have to do the counseling between the husband and a wife, there are differences in the families. One person would say, this person did this thing wrong. And the other person would have a whole list of things, she did these things too. So now, putting both of these lists together, you ask the husband, why did you do all of these things? Because she did all of these things. So ask the wife, why did you do these things? She's referring to the other list, or because he did these things. So now, how can we reconcile between the two? You tell this person, you got to stop doing these things. But why did he do all of these things? If you keep on fighting on, why did he do these things? And because he did these, I will continue doing this. And he's saying the same thing, because she did this, I will continue doing this. There is no end to that war. The best thing is, okay, if she did all of this, you be the good person, the good man. Now you stop doing these things. Even if she does this, you don't do this. If next time you come home and you hear curses, you keep your head down. Don't say nothing. If she comes home and she finds out that as soon as she comes in, she have a couple of bruises on her face, one is she can do a lot of other things on the other hand. Break the glass, break the dishes, run away, do a lot of other things. And it happens. We see it a lot of times. But if the other person would fulfill his responsibility, what is it that I have to do in this situation? What is my responsibility? A person came to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Said, Ya Rasulullah, I have my relatives who always are opposing me, they try to hurt me, and they do everything and anything they can to harm me. What's my responsibility towards them, Ya Rasulullah? Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam replied that you keep on doing whatever you are supposed to do, which means Silatul Rahim, joining the relationship with them. This person says, Ya Rasulullah, I do that. I do that. But they always continue doing whatever they have been doing, causing harm to me. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, even after hearing this, a person like us would be a little upset. Oh, they do this to you? So if they do this next time, then make sure you do this too. But Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says to this Sahabi that if you do this, it's just like these people are eating dirt and you are trying to feed them and eating sweet. So all what you are doing is very sweet and what they're doing is dirt. You don't want to be eating dirt like they're eating dirt. You continue doing what you're doing. What a beautiful teaching, and could be only from a prophet of Allah, who even after hearing they are doing this and that to me, still he doesn't get emotional about it, and he is reminding the person of his responsibility towards them. Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu anhu, he used to help one of his relatives whose name was Mistah. He's always helping him financially, and Mistah was a very poor person, and at the same time he was trying to spend time in learning the deen, therefore he didn't have too much time to go and work and earn for himself. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu told him, don't worry about it, I'll take care of your needs. When some people blamed Aisha radiallahu anha and accused her for things that we already know about and Quran talked about it, Mistah, by mistake, he uttered the very same words and he took part in it, which means he told some people, did you hear what Aisha did? At the end, when ayahs of Al-Quran Al-Kareem were revealed regarding Aisha radiallahu anha, that she is pure, she did not do any of these things, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu got upset with Mistah and he said, I will never help Mistah again. This is it. I have been helping him all of this time, and then he accuses my daughter. He accuses the wife of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Never again I would help this man. And the ayah of Quran al-Kareem was revealed. وَلَا يَأْتَلِ أُولُو الْفَضْلِ مِنْكُمْ وَالسَّعَةِ أَنْ يُؤْتُوا أُولِي الْقُرْبَى وَالْمَسَاكِينِ وَالْمُهَاجِرِينَ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ وَلِيَعْفُوا وَلْيَصْفَحُوا. The people who have been blessed with wealth and financially they are good, they should never take an oath of not helping their relatives and the poor people and muhajireen. They should forgive. وَلْيَعْفُوا وَلْيَصْفَحُوا. They should let go, they should forgive. أَلَا تُحِبُّونَ أَن يَغْفِرَ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ. Don't you want Allah to forgive you? How Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is reminding people their responsibility, that look what you are. Don't put yourself into that person's class. Don't go down lower into his class. Try to bring him up into your class. Beautiful teachings of this deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is reminding us through these ayahs, this name of Al-Haseeb is reminding us that we are accountable for everything that we do. If we find that today I can do something wrong to a person where no one would find out, Al-Haseeb subhanahu wa ta'ala, one day he will judge me for it. I see $100 out on the street. I can pick them and put them in my pocket very easily. No one would even know about it. But how about Al-Haseeb subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is watching me, and one day he is going to hold me accountable for it? I have such a strong proofs against this person that I can take him to the court, and because he hurt me the other day so badly, he did this to me. So now I have a situation where I can have some witnesses, I can prove in every court, in every system, that this person owes me $1 million. I can do it. I can prove it. And he will be found guilty and he will have to pay me for it. And I took the money also. I'm very happy. What will happen to Yawm al-Hisab? That day when we will be standing before Al-Haseeb Jalla Jalaluh. What will happen on that day? Today I won this case. Once Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said to Sahaba Ridwanullahi alayhim ajma'in, that when you bring people to me with differences, make sure that before coming to me, you look at your own case and your own situation. And if you feel that you are wrong and you could be wrong, even if you can prove yourself right, don't bring that case to me. Because I will give the judgment and issue the ruling according to the witnesses I have, from the worldly point of view. But if you take someone else's right without having the authority of having it, and you just made up something, you know that you are wrong, but because you had a proof, you had a case, you went and got it. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, on the day of judgment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will hold you accountable for it. And if you take anything out of haram in this situation, you are only taking flames of fire. If you want, you can take more, or if you want, you can let them go. These are flames of fire. In many situations, especially in a family disputes, we find when a situation unfortunately gets to divorce, each person tries to get everything from the other party. You would see this always happening. That the husband, if he has the power, he would even take her jewelry, clothing, everything else. And if she can do it, she would take whatever she can. And here we see this problem day and night. What will happen on the day of Yawm al-Hisab? On that day when Al-Haseeb subhanahu wa ta'ala will judge us for all of these things. So here we see that if a person is connected to Al-Haseeb subhanahu wa ta'ala, when our connection is established with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, remembering that He is Al-Haseeb, He is the one who would really judge. These judgments in this world, they are only worldly things. The real time, the real day is coming ahead of us. And He did not leave us loose here. If I'm in power, I can kill millions of people. I can rob people. I can do whatever I want. And because I'm in power, no one can say nothing about me. No one can do nothing to me. No, it's not going to end at that. Someday, this person has to die. And after that, he has to be there for Yawm al-Hisab. And Al-Haseeb subhanahu wa ta'ala will be the judge on that day. So this world is just like as we run our family, we run our home, we run our businesses, we run our organizations. There is responsibility here. And there is accountability here. And one day we will be standing before Al-Haseeb subhanahu wa ta'ala, who will be questioning us about it. Keeping that in mind, now we do whatever we want. Now we should deal with situations accordingly. And if a person would remember this, there is no way that a person would think even there is 0.1%, I could be wrong, and he will try to take that right, and he would try to get it for himself. Let me just let it go. Even if 0.1% I think I could be wrong, let me just let it go, because I don't want to be wrong on the day of judgment before Al-Haseeb subhanahu wa ta'ala, and on that day then I won't be able to pay for it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Quran al-Kareem, as He reminded us that there will be a day of reckoning, and when all will be standing before Allah and Al-Haseeb subhanahu wa ta'ala will be there to judge us, He also reminds us that don't think anything could be hidden from Rabbul Alameen subhanahu wa ta'ala. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in one of the ayahs says, فَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ خَيْرًا يَرَهُ وَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ شَرًّا يَرَهُ. An atom of good or evil would be seen on that day. وَوُضِعَ الْكِتَابِ فَتَرَى الْمُجْرِمِينَ مُشْفِقِينَ مِمَّا فِيهِ Surah Al-Kahf. The book has been presented, and the wrongdoers are afraid of what is in the book, in that book. They are afraid because of the context of the book. And the book carries only what they have done. Nothing beside what the people have done. وَيَقُولُونَ يَا وَيْلَتَنَا. People would be saying, woe to us, مَا لِهَذَا الْكِتَابِ. What type of book is this? لَا يُغَادِرُ صَغِيرَةً وَلَا كَبِيرَةً إِلَّا أَحْصَاهَا. Every minor and major thing has been recorded in this book. Everything I did in my life. Even a quick look, I even forgot it. But the book now reminds me that yes, one day you did this. One word. I said it, I never even thought that I said it. I never even remember it. The book reminds me, yes, on that day, at that time, at that moment, in the presence of these people, you said these words. لا يغادر صغيرة ولا كبيرة إلا أحصاها ووجدوا ما عملوا حاضرا. They only find present in front of them whatever they have done. It's what we did. So this will be the type of hisab on that day when everything will be presented. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us what is our responsibility regarding Yawm al-Hisab. We know that the day will be coming. how can we make sure that we are prepared for it? And we make it safe and good on that day. One thing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in Quran, and that is, keep on remembering that day and be afraid of being questioned, of all of the questioning that you will have to go through on that day. When each and every person will have that fear, which simply means sense of responsibility. Fear simply refers to sense of responsibility, that I'm going to be held responsible for it. I can't do this. A police officer who is on his duty at this time, at this moment, he will be very careful of each and every action that he takes and each and every word that he would utter. When he's out of duty, he's off duty, he may do a lot of other things that he normally would never do when he's on duty. A lawyer who's sitting in his office and with his clients, he will be very careful of what he says to his clients and what type of commitments he makes. When he is not in his office, he's sitting with his family, his friends, he could say a lot of other things. A judge who's sitting in that position on his seat to be giving rulings and issuing rulings at that time, he will be very careful of each and every word that he utters on that position. Accordingly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is reminding us, a mu'min who is in this position, and we are always in that position of remembering that we are the people of Iman, we are believers. And accordingly, I have responsibilities. And I am the servant of Allah. Accordingly, I have some more responsibilities. And accordingly, I should behave in this world, be very careful of what to say, what to do with my actions, with my hearing, anything that I hear, I say, I speak about, I make my commitments about, any of my actions that I do in my life. A person would be extremely careful with his life, so that on the day of reckoning, this person will not be called before Rabbul Alameen subhanahu wa ta'ala, Haseeb subhanahu wa ta'ala, as a criminal. That why did you do this on that day? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, remember the day all the time. And remember standing before Al-Haseeb subhanahu wa ta'ala at all the times. الَّذِينَ يُبَلِّغُونَ رِسَالَةِ اللَّهِ. This is in Surah Al-Ahzab. الَّذِينَ يُبَلِّغُونَ رِسَالَةِ اللَّهِ. Those who convey the message of the Lord to others. وَيَخْشَوْنَ. And they fear Allah. وَلَا يَخْشَوْنَ أَحَدًا إِلَّا اللَّهِ. And they don't fear anyone beside Allah. وَكَفَى بِاللَّهِ حَسِيبًا. Allah is enough to judge them. In another ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَيَخْشَوْنَ رَبَّهُمْ. In Surah Al-Ra'd, وَالَّذِينَ يَصِلُونَ مَا أَمَرَ اللَّهُ بِأَن يُوصَلْ. Those who join what Allah has ordered to be joined, relationship, whatever else. وَيَخْشَوْنَ رَبَّهُمْ. And they fear the Lord. وَيَخَافُونَ سُوءَ الْحِسَابِ. And they fear having a very terrible judgment on that day. When a person is afraid of having terrible time at the judgment, سُوءَ الْحِسَابِ, terrible time at the judgment, then this person would be careful with his actions, not to do anything that will make his hisab سُوءَ الْحِسَابِ, a terrible judgment. A judgment where he will have to go through difficulties, where he would be ashamed of himself. This is سُوءَ الْحِسَابِ. So this is one thing that we need to do, that always remind ourselves, whatever we do, when we are by ourselves, when we are only with our families, when we are with our friends, when we are with our enemies, and we have the power of doing something to them, of hurting them, taking revenge, whatever we are doing, we are at work, we are at home, we are in the masjid, we are on the street, wherever we may be, whatever situation we are in, always reminding ourselves that Al-Haseeb subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching, and one day He would be questioning me about this. Should I curse? And I can say to Allah, I curse because I had a valid reason? Should I hurt this person? Should I take this? For everything, we need to remind ourselves, Al-Haseeb subhanahu wa ta'ala will question me, do I have a valid reason for doing this? Can I really prove myself being correct in doing these type of things? Or if not, let me just stay away from it. Let the other people do it. Let this person curse. Let this person do whatever he wants. Let me see what I have to do. Because he will be questioned for his deeds, I will be questioned for my deeds. This is one thing. The other part, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in Quran al-Kareem, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يُضِلُّونَ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يَضِلُّونَ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ لَهُمْ عَذَابٌ شَدِيدٌ بِمَا نَسُوا يَوْمَ الْحِسَابِ. Forgetting the day of judgment is a cause of عَذَابٌ شَدِيدٌ, of a very severe punishment from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. People who go astray, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, they will have a very severe punishment in Akhirah, and the reason for that is بِمَا نَسُوا يَوْمَ الْحِسَابِ, because they forgot the day of reckoning. So forgetting that time, forgetting this hisab, is a cause of a severe punishment in Akhirah. So we should always remember it, and we should always remind ourselves of being questioned on that day, so that there is fear. When there is fear, now this person will be holding himself and herself responsible for it. A lot of times, we see that different countries are working very hard on different technologies to prevent people from committing crimes. Still, there are crimes all around the world. And the more we are developing the technology in preventing the crime, the more, on the other hand, people are developing things to break this technology, and it looks like they are ahead with their technology than the technology to prevent these crimes. Now, if we are to ask this question, go out in public and ask people this question, that all of these things are happening in the world, and we know what's happening. With all of these things that are happening, so much robbery, stealing, and killing, and everything else, how can you stop it? How can you prevent people from doing it? And you would always find people are trying to come up with some new technology. Okay, we should develop these type of technology so that people are watched when they are here. We are going to put some security systems over here. We are going to develop the other type of devices that are going to scan people's bodies now, to even make sure even in his stomach he doesn't carry anything. But to what extent? Aren't they going to develop something else to break this? And isn't this continuously happening? And the countries that are more advanced in this technology, there is more crime there. This is a fact also. So what's the way? The way is the same that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam used. When he came, the world was full of all kind of crimes. He used that method, and this method was what we are talking about today, and that is reminding people of Yawm al-Hisab. That your Rabb is al-Haseeb. He is going to judge you for whatever you do. So regardless of what type of act you do at this time, and no one can find out about it. You can steal it, you can take it, you can rob the person. There will be no witnesses. No one would know about it. But how about Al-Haseeb subhanahu wa ta'ala? When people had that belief in Iman, and they really were connected to Al-Haseeb subhanahu wa ta'ala, we find people, they are having so much taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that in the darkness of the night, this person would not hurt the worst enemy of his. He would not try to hurt him. Because he knows he has to stand before Al-Haseeb subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is not the end of it. the benefit of remembering Akhirah and Hisab and connecting ourselves to Al-Haseeb subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in Quran al-Kareem that when people would connect themselves to Al-Haseeb subhanahu wa ta'ala and they remember Yawm al-Hisab, the benefit they would get is when the day would come, for these people Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make the judgment very light. Because of course He's watching us. He knows about us. And He knows this person is very careful with all of his deeds, with all of his actions. He's very careful with everything that he does. And he's always afraid to be held accountable by me. Once Allah knows this, so on the day of judgment, if this is the rule of Allah, if a person goes through some hardship and difficulty once, He won't make the person go through the same thing again for the second time, for the same reason. If a person had the fear of Hisab in this world, on the day of Akhirah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make his Hisab very light for the person. In fact, we find in the hadith that there are some people who really are very afraid of the day of Hisab. And accordingly, they are very careful with their deeds, with their amal. And their connection with Al-Haseeb subhanahu wa ta'ala is very strong. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam tells us about those people, that these people will not have no hisab on the day of judgment. Allah knows about them. And therefore, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would just send them into Jannah without any hisab. Would just send them into the Jannah without any hisab, because He knows how these people judged themselves in this world. There is no need to judge them again. This is why Umar radiallahu anhu used to say, and Imam Ibn Sirin rahimahullah also said, as Imam Tirmizi rahimahullah has narrated it in his Sunan, that حَاسِبُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ قَبْلَ أَن تُحَاسَبُوا. Judge yourself before Allah would judge you. People who have that habit of being in that position at all times, they always judge themselves. Those are the people who would be of the highest category in the Akhirah. They will go into the Jannah without hisab. Some other people who are in a little lower category than those, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in Surah Al-Inshiqaq, إِذَا السَّمَاءُ انشَقَّتْ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us about them. فَأَمَّا مَنْ أُوتِيَ كِتَابَهُ بِيَمِينِهِ. They will be given their record in the right hand. Getting the record into the right hand, which simply means فَسَوْفَ يُحَاسَبُ حِسَابًا يَسِيرًا. His judgment will be very light. He will go through very light judgment, because he was careful. Of course, not as good as the first group of people, but he was still very careful with his deeds, and therefore Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make him go through some hisab, but hisaban yasira. His hisab will be very light and easy. Which simply means many of the things, because he was careful and still he committed a lot of mistakes and he did a lot of wrong things. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will look at those, okay, I'll let this go. Okay, don't worry about this one. Just go. Hisaban yasira. Aisha radiallahu anha, once she asked Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, what does hisaban yasira means? Light hisab. What does this mean? Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, ذَلِكَ الْعَرْض. Which simply means that Allah will call the person. Okay, it's time for your judgment now. These are all of your records. And the person will look into his records and he's afraid, because of course there is something there. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make him go through his record. When he goes through it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say, okay, just go to Jannah. Hisaban yasira. Very light judgment. For some time there was little fear that Allah called me. I have been called for an explanation, but it's not questioned. It will be just sent there. For those people who neglect the day of Hisab, they are not paying any heed to it. To all of these reminders that are reminding us of the day of Hisab, they don't care about it. They don't have no connection with Al-Haseeb subhanahu wa ta'ala. They broke their relationship with Al-Haseeb subhanahu wa ta'ala. And accordingly, they don't consider themselves responsible for any of their deeds except from the worldly point of view. When it comes to going to the grave, seeing our deeds, being presented to Allah, being questioned on the Day of Judgment, Jannah and Jahannam, they are not paying no attention to it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us about those people in Quran. لِلَّذِينَ اسْتَجَابُوا لِرَبِّهِمُ الْحُسْنَى. Those who obey the Lord, they will have good everywhere. وَالَّذِينَ لَمْ يَسْتَجِيبُوا لَهُ. Those who do not obey the Lord, they broke their connection with Rabbul Alameen subhanahu wa ta'ala. لَوْ أَنَّ لَهُمْ مَا فِي الْأَرْضِ جَمِيعًا وَمِثْلَهُ مَعَهُ لَافْتَدَوْا بِهِ. If they would own the whole universe and whatever it contains, and another world similar to this world, and they would try to give that as a ransom to protect themselves from the adhab of the akhirah, they will not be saved from it. أُولَٰئِكَ لَهُمْ سُوءُ الْحِسَابِ. These people will have to go through very difficult questioning. Su al-hisab. See, at what time this bad hisab comes, this difficult questioning would come, this terrible hisab and reckoning would come, this is when person breaks himself from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When the person breaks his relationship from the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now this person is going towards su al-hisab. He can do a lot of wrong in this world. And he can still have his positions and the highest position die with the same positions. But then now when the time would come, he will have su'ul hisab. Very difficult judgment. And once the judgment will be made difficult by Rabbul Alameen subhanahu wa ta'ala, there is no way that person can escape the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In another ayah, which is in Surah Al-Talaq, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَكَأَيٍّ مِّن قَرْيَةٍ عَتَتْ عَنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّهَا وَرُسُلِهِ فَحَاسَبْنَاهَا حِسَابًا شَدِيدًا. There are people, there are residents of many cities and many towns. عَتَتْ عَنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّهَا وَرُسُلِهِ. They rebelled against the orders of Allah and His messengers. Okay? They went away. They broke their connection with Allah, with the messengers of Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَحَاسَبْنَاهَا حِسَابًا شَدِيدًا. What I did for them was, I made the judgment, the questioning very difficult for them. And once this happens, when that they had to go through very hard questioning and difficult situation with the judgment, وَعَذَّبْنَاهَا عَذَابًا نُكْرًا. Then we gave them a very terrible punishment also. And that is the result of it. So, the thing that we learn here with the name of Al-Haseeb subhanahu wa ta'ala, that as we connect ourselves to Al-Haseeb subhanahu wa ta'ala, it protects us against the difficulty of the questioning in Akhirah. On the day of reckoning, on the day of Hisab, on the day of judgment, when we are standing before Allah, all the Hisab will become very easy for us if we keep that Hisab in our mind in this world, and we keep our connection with Al-Haseeb subhanahu wa ta'ala. If we establish our connection with Al-Haseeb as Al-Haseeb, not just as Allah, as Al-Haseeb, which means remembering that Allah will judge me. And accordingly, my connection is there, that I'm very careful with my deeds, because I have to stand before Allah someday. In Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that normally there are two reasons that make people neglect the day of Hisab and break their connection with Al-Haseeb subhanahu wa ta'ala. There are two reasons mainly. One is arrogance. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَقَالَ مُوسَى إِنِّي عُذْتُ بِرَبِّي وَرَبِّكُم مِّن كُلِّ مُتَكَبِّرٍ لَا يُؤْمِنُ بِيَوْمِ الْحِسَابِ. Musa alayhi salatu wasalam said, I seek the refuge of my Lord and your Lord. He's saying to Bani Israel, مِن كُلِّ مُتَكَبِّرٍ, from against every arrogance who does not believe on the day of reckoning. So takabbur, arrogance, is the thing that makes the person neglect his responsibility. The more the person remembers the day of Hisab, the more he would be humbling him and herself. We can see the result of it. That I'm responsible. This person doesn't care of what he's doing, but I can't be in that position. This would make the person be humble with his life, with his dealings. Arrogance normally leads people towards neglecting Yawm al-Hisab. Okay, I don't care. A lot of times, some of the criminals and some of the youth, especially, who put themselves into these type of situations, they end up being in prison for years and years. What's the reason for it? A couple of friends are standing there, and they tell him, look at what he said to you. And now, he tried, okay, I'm going to show him. And someone says to him, no, remember, you know what you're getting yourself in? Oh, I don't care. See? Arrogance. At this time, he doesn't care. And this is leading him to be in that position. This is one thing. The other thing is, ghaflah. When a person is neglectful to things, he doesn't remember his responsibilities. اقترب للناس حسابهم. The day of reckoning is coming very close, is drawing very near to people. وهم في غفلة معرضون. And they are heedless and turning away from it. So, normally when a person neglects his responsibilities, forgets his responsibilities, does not pay any heed towards the responsibilities he have been assigned by Rabbul Alameen subhanahu wa ta'ala, then this person remembers the day of Hisab. Then this person breaks his relationship with Al-Haseeb subhanahu wa ta'ala, and accordingly the Hisab becomes difficult for those people. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam therefore taught us a beautiful dua. This should be our dua at all times, with every prayer. Allahumma hasibni hisaban yasira. Ya Allah, make my judgment very light. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make our judgment very light and easy. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq to have connection with Him subhanahu wa ta'ala as Al-Haseeb Jalla Jalaluh. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept all of us. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين والمسلمات وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. If there are any questions, please go ahead. The question is, backbiting of a Muslim is haram. How about backbiting non-Muslims? One thing I would mention here as a reminder, and that is, remember when Islam teaches us these akhlaq, moralities, behaviors, and a person works towards them, these becomes the person's own behavior. Then the person is not differentiating between Muslim, kafir, animal, tree. He doesn't want to talk bad about anyone or any person. This is the habit that Islam would love to see us having and developing within ourselves. So, even in a situation where there may be a room to do it, this person is not trying to find a room to do these things. This is his habit, that he doesn't do anything like this, except when Sharia will ask him to do it. That's totally a different situation. So, one thing with these type of behaviors, which is backbiting or accusing others, any of these type of things, these are really behaviors. And a person we should be known for that behavior. People would know us. This person wouldn't do anything like this. Even if someone tells me this brother was doing this, no, I don't think this brother would ever do this thing. He could do a lot of other wrong things, but with this thing I know he won't do it. So it should be our behavior. And this is something that Islam really teaches us, that we should develop these type of behaviors within ourselves, so that we always are known for this. This is one thing. Number two, Sharia even forbids backbiting non-Muslims. Now, if a person would neglect any of the rights of non-Muslims, for example, you take someone's money without his permission, you backbited someone, you hurt someone's feelings, this person will not be getting reward in Akhirah, because reward is not going to help him in Akhirah. But Wallahu alam, who knows, this person would be able to load some of his burden on this person's shoulder. The least is, this person will claim his right before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and inna Allah la yazlimun nasa shay'a. Allah does not do wrong to people. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam tells us in the hadith that that day would be the type of day when even those animals who had hurt each other, they would be brought back to life, whereas animals are not responsible, they are not going to be judged, there is no Jannah, Jahannam for them. But Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says there is an animal with horns, and because of that was stronger than the other one who did not have horns. On the day of judgment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bring both of them back to life. Now the one that did not have horn in this world will have the horns in akhirah and will take revenge from the other one. So even animals will be taking it from each other. Imagine human beings. The question is, there are some people who are insane. So what's the ruling of Sharia regarding those people? Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, subhanallah, all the rules of Sharia are already established long before people would even think about these things. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, رُفِعَ الْقَلَمُ عَنْ ثَلَاثٍ. Pen has been lifted, which means three people are not responsible for their actions. النَّائِمْ حَتَّى يَسْتَيْقِظ. The one who's sleeping until he wakes up. Which means a person was sleeping. And while he's sleeping, he's dreaming something, and his wife wakes him up. You were saying talaq, talaq. No, he's not responsible. Rufi' al-qalam. He is not responsible for what he does while he's sleeping. Number 2, was-sabi hatta yablugh. The child until he will get to the age of puberty. And number 3, the insane person until he will. مولاي صل وسلم